All right, we'll go ahead and get started with the weekly briefing for August 21st to August 27th. Today is Total Eclipse Day 2017, so we will cover a little bit about the eclipse, and then we'll take a look at the rest of the weekly impacts for Central North Carolina for this week. This is an animation of the visible satellite imagery from this morning, covering all of North Carolina and parts of Virginia and South Carolina. And you'll notice that there was an area of very bright white clouds over the southern part and eastern part of North Carolina this morning. That was very thick, low overcast and areas of dense fog, which encompassed areas from Lumberton to Fayetteville, Maxton, Laurinburg, and even up into Sanford, Lillington, and parts of southern Wake County. You can see in this animation that the fog and the low clouds have very rapidly eroded and lifted, and taking the place of the low clouds now is a fairly expansive cumulus cloud field, now covering much of eastern South Carolina and portions of central and eastern North Carolina. And it looks like we'll have mainly just that cumulus field to contend with for eclipse viewing for this afternoon. Some of those cumulus clouds will develop into showers and storms. This is a look at an ensemble forecast of accumulated precipitation ending tonight at 8 p.m., which kind of gives you an idea of the areas that may see precipitation in the form of showers and storms this afternoon. One over far southeastern North Carolina, down toward Clinton, just east of Fayetteville and Goldsboro, and then another axis back in the mountains and extending even into the foothills and the western Piedmont, which would include portions of the Triad. So if you're out in the Winston-Salem or Greensboro area very late this afternoon or this evening, looks like you could see a shower or storm out there, most likely after the eclipse time out in the western Piedmont. If we get showers and storms in the southeast, that would be around eclipse time in the southeast, and in the west, most likely after eclipse time. This is just a look at the upper air pattern this morning. There's a very strong subtropical ridge of high pressure extending from near Bermuda westward into the southeastern United States. And beneath that ridge, we're getting relatively subsident and warm conditions. So temperatures today will be up in the lower to middle 90s. And again, aside from the smattering of showers and storms in the southeastern part of the state, and then back into the mountains and the adjacent foothills in western Piedmont, there shouldn't be a whole lot of storm activity as a result of that big dome of high pressure. That high pressure will move offshore as we go through the week. This is a forecast through the weekend of the mid to upper level air pattern, which drives the weather here at the surface. And notice the big dip in the heights here over the northeastern United States, the Great Lakes, and eastern Canada, and that extends down toward the southeastern United States. And that trough of low pressure in the mid and upper levels of the atmosphere will result in cooler than average temperatures by the time we get into the middle to especially latter part of the week, and then continuing into next weekend and really even into next week as it appears now. The weather pattern for the surface, we've got a cold front well to our northwest this morning, extending from the western Great Lakes down into the central plains. So most of the active weather is going to be back in the vicinity of that front. And again, we've got the big area of subtropical high pressure with just very isolated to widely scattered showers and storms over the Carolinas. As we approach the middle of the week, this top right graphic is valid at 8 a.m. on Wednesday. That front will be nearing the central and southern Appalachians with the associated shower and thunderstorm activity nearing North Carolina. And it looks like the precipitation chances around here will peak late in the day Wednesday and then continuing into Thursday as that front just makes slow progress through North Carolina. But then by the time we get into Friday morning, the bottom left graphic here, that front is off the coast with high pressure building south from the Great Lakes. And that ridge of high pressure, it looks like, will continue to extend across much of the eastern United States right on through the weekend, with the front and the unsettled weather suppressed well to the south and east of North Carolina. So it looks like the most active period is going to be, again, late Wednesday into Thursday, and then cooler and drier conditions for late week into the weekend. The severe thunderstorm potential, we are outlooked for a marginal risk of severe weather for Wednesday, which is the bottom left graphic here, and that's along and ahead of that cold front that will be moving in. Not expecting anything widespread or significant, as you would expect this time of year when we're at a relative minimum with any organized severe weather, but any storms that do form will be capable of producing damaging wind gusts, and some of those storms may organize into at least clusters of eastward moving bands or clusters of storms, and there may be some localized higher wind threat within those eastward moving clusters along and ahead of the cold front. But again, nothing too severe even on Wednesday, and that's really the only day that's outlooked for any potential severe weather this week. Here's the accumulated precipitation forecast through the week, and you'll see the precipitation is certainly clustered around the middle of the week. Today here in the top left, again focused over the mountains and along the coast, and then not really a whole lot for tomorrow, at least for central North Carolina. Again, the two axes along the coast and one over the western part of the state. But then by the time we get into the middle of the week, you can see a maximum of forecast precipitation right over central and eastern North Carolina, again in association with that approaching and slowly passing cold front. That front will be slow to linger during the day, or slow to depart, and will linger during the day Thursday, especially in the southeastern part of the state. So we could have some showers and storms around continuing into the day Thursday, and a little bit of cloudiness as well, especially over the southern and eastern part of the state. So it could be a little cooler with a low overcast, particularly early in the day, really all across central North Carolina, but lingering longest in the southeastern sections. And drying out once again as that front settles well to the south and east of our area for the weekend. The tropics are relatively active in that there are several systems to watch, but there are no named systems at this time, and it looks like North Carolina will be relatively protected based on that trough in the upper levels of the atmosphere, which would tend to steer any potential storms out to sea, and they wouldn't be able to make a run at the southeastern United States coast. The greatest concern in the tropics is the remnants of Harvey, which may approach the Texas and northern Mexican coast later in the week, and there is some risk of regeneration of that system. So for those folks down in South Texas, for example, they could be dealing with potentially the reformation of Harvey. And then there's another area of disturbed weather near the Bahamas, which may develop just a little bit off the coast of Florida during the next few days. But again, even that, if that were to occur, it looks like that system would be steered off to the northeast, generally parallel to the southeastern United States coast, and posing no risk for our area. And then there's one last area of disturbed weather east of the northern Lesser Antilles, and it looks like atmospheric conditions will be unfavorable for development with that particular system. So lots to watch, but nothing significant, and certainly nothing that will affect North Carolina, it would appear at this time. As we look ahead to next week, that mid and upper level pattern that I showed you just a few minutes ago with that trough in the upper atmosphere over the eastern United States, it looks like that will continue into next week, and as a result, there is an above normal chance of below normal temperatures over much of the eastern United States, pretty much east of the Rockies, during the 8 to 14 day outlook, which would be for essentially next week. And for North Carolina, there's not really a clear signal for above or below normal precipitation, but it looks like we'll be sort of on the fringe of an area of above normal precipitation just to the south and east of that trough axis, where we typically get rising motion, and moisture will be better down in the vicinity of that stalled frontal zone that passes through here during the middle of the week. So it looks like on average for most of North Carolina, equal chances, with perhaps the southern part of the state standing a little bit above average chance of being wetter than usual next week. So in summary, it looks like we'll just contend with fair weather cumulus clouds around here for the eclipse this afternoon, which should start at about 1:15 for most folks, give or take a couple of minutes, depending on where you are in the state. And then it should peak just about at 2:45, so at about 2:45. And then the end of the eclipse will be just a few minutes after 4 o'clock. So about the half hour to 45 minutes either side of the peak around 2:45. That's when the eclipse will be most noticeable. And we certainly encourage folks to experience it if they can, but do so safely with the viewing glasses. Otherwise, you've heard and seen all over the news, do not look at the sun directly. And I'm sure there will be live coverage and replays of the eclipse throughout the U.S. By this afternoon and evening. So even if you can't get out and experience it yourself, I'm sure you'll get to see it on TV or on the internet later. And then again, the rain chances peak late Wednesday into Thursday, and cooling and drying conditions behind the front late week into the weekend. That's all we have for you. Thanks so much for spending your time with us this morning, and I hope you enjoy the eclipse. If you have any questions, please type those into the box.